You all haven't seen Ryan in a while.
Good day thinkers, thought leaders, progressives, and dreamers. I'm Craig TheWriter Stewart, and this is So Much to Say YouTube TV. These are my thoughts, in my voice, on black shit, white shit, gay shit, and everything in between. Now, So Much to Say YouTube TV is the place that you come to learn and grow. So go ahead and hit the like button, the share button, and the subscribe button. And turn on that little bell so that you get a notification every single time that I go live or I upload something new. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Sean Inspires podcast has just released a new episode. Listen, I don't want you to miss it. Make sure you download and share it with your community.
Ryan and I were just running around. We were listening to a little Destiny's Children. Girl. Talk to girl. That. And then we listened to Free. And your mind's made up. I
heard you. Thank you so much. Before we get started, I just wanted to say thanks for your time. I really appreciate you making it work, fitting it in.
Of course.
What happens? Start the interview.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. Welcome, and thank you for tuning in to the Sean Inspires podcast. I am Sean Allen, your podcast host and transformational life coach. I have a special guest here in Atlanta. He goes by the name of Craig TheWriter Stewart. I am just going to dive right into the interview. I'm going to read Craig's bio, but I want Craig to come in after and introduce himself to you, the listening audience, in his own way. So here we are. Craig TheWriter Stewart attended Hampton University and graduated with a degree in liberal arts. Following graduation, he relocated to Atlanta, where he wrote and produced a stage play entitled A Day in the Life that played before a sold-out audience. In 2012, he released his first book, Words Never Spoken, a memoir, in 2015. It was followed by the sequel, One Thing for Certain, Two Things for Sure, a memoir continued. And his third release, So Much to Say, a book of quotes, was released in 2017, all of which carry a 5-star rating on Amazon. Stewart is also the founder of Say It in a Card greeting card company and the showrunner for the Queen's Supreme Court online show with T.S. Madison. He is also a podcast host, and his podcast is entitled So Much to Say. Craig, I'm glad to have you sitting in with me this evening and the listening audience of Sean Inspires. Please feel free to introduce yourself to the listening audience.
Well, I mean, there's really not too much more I can say to what you said, right? That pretty much covered everything. But I am originally from Baltimore. I moved to Atlanta 2 days after I graduated from Hampton. And I was a journalism major. And when I was at Hampton, I thought that I wanted to deliver the news behind a news desk. But then once I learned that, you really have to have a passion for the news or to be a journalist, period, because, what you write changes every day. One day it could be a fire, the next day it could be some world disaster, whatever. So like the story is always different. And so you don't get to curate your stories. There's no real creativity in that. Your boss or your editor tells you what the story is going to be that you have to cover, and then that's what you do. And I knew that I didn't want to do that, and I knew that I didn't love journalism enough to move to some little small town and then have to climb my way, to a bigger market. But the ultimate thing was I realized that I wanted to do more of a creative writing. And so when I moved to Atlanta, I moved here with the thought I would just write music. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've always loved music. I have a passion for music, vocal arrangements, just all, production in general. And so that's what I thought I wanted to do exclusively. And then I got here and I realized that it was bigger than just writing music. That was just a part of the journey, but that wasn't, that was just kind of like a pathway to like other things hence the book and the greeting cards and the stage plays and, you know, all that kind of stuff.
It seems like you have a whole new chapter that you are now getting ready to walk into, which is one of the main reasons I wanted to have you on the show. Someone very dear to me that also worked as an assistant mentioned your name to me a few months back. And so I started to do my own reportive investigating, and I came across one of your amazing interviews on YouTube talking about a new chapter moving to Paris, which happens to be one of my favorite places in the world. But there was something really, in one of the many statements that you made that really grabbed my attention, that I knew would be such a blessing and also an inspiration to the Sean Inspires podcast listening audience. The piece of information that you shared in that segment, when you made the announcement, you strategically spoke and said that you heard the voice of the Lord speaking to you as you were working out, and I believe you were riding your bike, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you were riding your bike, and you said you knew then for sure that that was your answer for this next chapter that's filled with so many new beginnings behind the door when you physically make that transition. And that was the piece that grabbed me, and I really wanted to find out a little bit more and how we can inspire and spark the faith of this listening audience to do such a bold thing, because many of us, we sit back, we think about it, we write about it, we talk to our friends about it, but we never take the bold step to move into action.
That moment felt so very similar to previous moments, but previous moments where I was led to do something, right? Where it really wasn't like a decision of my own. It felt like it was decided for me. Like I laugh and I cut up and I'm silly, but I'm very spiritual. You know what I mean? Like I'm really, really dialed in to what I was called to do. You know what I mean? Like I'm really, really dialed in. And, you know, I'm so much closer now to seeing people as like spirits. And I mean, like, and I'm not trying to be obtuse, and I'm not trying, like, I'm thinking more about people, human beings being spirits. Like each of us being here on some sort of an assignment to do something, but we all don't, it's not always actualized for all of us, right? Some people, like I do these things called one-on-ones where my followers can reach out to me and we do like a conversation. It could be life coaching, trying to figure out how to write a book or how to deal with a breakup or whatever it is. And this particular woman that I spoke to yesterday she's 52, and she said she was always really, really proficient with science. And she always thought she'd be a doctor. And she said even now she just has this longing. There's like a tugging in her spirit. And I write about a tugging in my spirit in my first book. This is one of those moments that I said, it felt riding on that bike that day and this idea of going to Paris, it felt just like it felt when my spirit led me to move to LA. And if I hadn't answered that call, I would have never wrote Words Never Spoken. That feeling felt so similar to that. Life is so right now. It is so right now. It's not next week. It's not, next year when I lose a few pounds, or, it's when I save X amount of dollars and then I'm going to have children, or then I'm going to buy my first house, or then I'm going to go to Hawaii, or then I'm going to start this business. Whatever your then I'm going to do, it needs to happen now. You're not guaranteed tomorrow. You really aren't. And maybe because I'm 47 now, I'm thinking more about mortality. Not my own per se, but I just think about, the cycle of life. We live and then we die.
Right.
And so when I was riding that bike that day, and I know this is kind of a long ass way of answering your question, but
it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, but I literally was riding my bike that day, and I was really just out there because I had been saying to myself, you have not really ridden your bike this season, and this is really good exercise. So on the surface, I went out there to ride the bike because I just needed to ride the bike, and it was just a form of exercise. But being the spiritual person that I am, I understand that on the surface, I went out there right here in the physical realm, right here on earth. The reasons that I went to ride the bikes because I was telling myself I needed to exercise. But from a spiritual perspective, I went out there to ride that bike because God knew that this idea of moving to Paris would be in motion. It would be put in motion on that bike ride.
Absolutely proud of you for taking the leap of faith, and I can hear the excitement. I don't even hear fear or any trepidation in your voice as we're talking, that there's so much excitement that's within you. I believe that is also serving as a support to you in this new endeavor that's in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I would like to ask is, at any point prior to, I know you mentioned 11th grade and wanting to, you visited and you've envisioned, but at any point in your journey before now and since then, did you ever have glimpses of you doing what you're getting ready to do now?
Interesting that you asked me that. No, I didn't have visions that I'd be doing what I'm doing now, but, and I'm always careful when I answer this kind of a question or when I talk about this, because this is a knowing that I've always had this. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've always known, and I write about this in Book of Jewels, my 4th book. In the very first chapter of that book is called Life, and I'm trying to trace back in that first chapter, like, at what point did I become afraid to take risks? Because there was a time that I had become afraid. Like, I was this ambitious person all the way up until I left college and moved to Atlanta. And then when life started happening to me and you get knocked down a few times, scrape your knees up, your elbows and shit, and you got to get up. Like, you start to second guess things and you start to move a little bit more carefully. But then sometimes that gingerly thing that you're doing sometimes can kind of cripple you and cause you to not move at all. And so when I was writing Book of Jewels, I was trying to trace back to the moment that I started becoming fearful to take risks, to take those leaps of faith. And what I discovered in writing that first chapter, you can't pinpoint a single moment, because it's not a single moment that you become afraid to move. It's a culmination of instances. So it's all of these things that happen that make you take pause. It's not one single thing. It's a collection of things. And then you just start to just kind of move differently. But then I had to move myself out of that fear phase too, right? And so I don't live my life now where I'm fearful of things. In terms of, But I don't want you to listen. I'm not jumping out no plane. I'm fearful of shit like that. That's not what I mean. I'm not fearful to get up, go to another country, sit myself there for a while. I'm not afraid to fail in front of people.